Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Lawrence, over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and today we're going to be discussing the Heritage auction that just ended last week. We're not going to take a look at every book out there, but I myself was following 7 specific books to see how they would do. Now, I know you guys have probably heard this before from other YouTubers out there who have covered some of these sales, but I gotta tell you, I want to talk a little bit about each book and how I think it affects the market. So please make sure you stick around to the end of the video. Before we get started, like always, I remind you guys, if you're not a current sub of the channel, do yourself a favor, hit that sub button, help the channel out, smash that like button for me so you can kind of get these videos out to people who have not seen my stuff before. With that said, let's take a look at some of these massive grails that sold on Heritage auctions last week, or should I say, didn't sell. So we might as well start off with this book, the book that actually did not sell. It is the Action Comics #1. We all know what this book is. It's the first appearance of Superman anywhere in comics. This one in a CGC 3.0. There are a lot of people out there who are saying that this book didn't really get the heights that it should because of the cover and the wear to it, the color damage. But to me, I don't really think that's the case. Yes, there is some color loss. The colors aren't the greatest. And I guess if you're going to spend this type of money on a comic book, you want the copy to be the most pristine copy that you can afford. With that said, this is listed on Heritage right now for $960,000. Doesn't mean you can buy it for that. It means you can put in a bid to see if you can actually buy this book. And if it reaches the minimum that the seller wants to sell it at, it will sell at that price. But either way, a pretty penny for this book. I was literally shocked that this book did not reach $1 million. It just goes to show you with the market where it is right now that people who have this type of disposable income to invest in collectibles are really not shelling out this type of money, right? We're going to see in a few other books, some other larger amounts that did sell. People actually went ahead and purchased those books, but it was nowhere near the amount that this book was going to go for. But I do have some GPA numbers on the screen that I want to talk about. First, we're going to start with a Universal 4.5 from 2012, believe it or not. We're talking about 12 years ago. A 4.5 sold for $323,000. Crazy, right? Then we have a restored copy at a 4.5 selling for $75,000 way back in 2010. So again, 14 years ago. There was a 4.0 that sold in May of 2018 where things started to really take off for $573,600. So to me, this is not bad, right? We're almost at $1 million from a book that was last sold about 6 years ago. We had a 3.5 that sold in February of 2004 for only $57,500. That is crazy. Then, of course, we had the 2021 sale for a 3.0, which was crazy. $1,638,759. Now, that was really the height of the comic book boom. I will say that Golden Age started to take off a little bit during around that time and really stopped at the beginning of this year. But either way, 600 and change off that last sale. Quite a beating for this book. I'm not sure if it's the exact same copy that went up for sale. It might have been. You can tell if you do have GPA and go on and click that serial number and see what book it actually was. But either way, I definitely was disappointed in this book. I think if this book had gotten for a good price, we kind of could have seen some of the market pick up a little bit because it did not. Sorry to say, even with the Superman movie coming out next year, that this book still, Big Grail, did not sell for what we thought it was going to. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Batman. And here we have, of course, the garage sale book, right? Everybody remembers this book. Somebody found it at a garage sale, submitted it to CGC, and it came back a 0.5 because the wrong back cover was on the book. But could you imagine going to a garage sale and finding a Tech 27 and probably recouping ridiculous amounts of money once you sell it? I mean, we all don't know what this person paid for this book, but regardless, it is a 0.5 married back cover, I guess you can call it, even though it is a blue label, which really bothers me when CGC does this. Why does it give it a blue label? But if I submit a married back cover, it would be a green label. So not sure why it happens. Regardless, this book sold on November 21st for an insane $312,000, which includes that 20% premium that Heritage puts on all books. Again, a monster sale price. There are people out there talking about this book going for around $240,000 to $250,000. Blew right past that with the premium. I knew someone who was actually trying to go ahead and get this book. They were bidding on it, but I think once it got past that $240,000, $250,000, they were out of the game. But again, a really huge sale. You guys can see I did take some 0.5s and even a 3.0 that recently sold on Heritage. and I'm going to show you those sales prices. So we actually have a conserved 0.5, which is actually coverless, no grade. The cover, the first wrap, and the centerfold are all color copies. And in July of 2023, that book sold for a whopping $70,000. Then we had a 0.5 no grade coverless incomplete, sold for $34,500 back in 2018, just when the comic boom started really getting going. Then, of course, we had another 0.5, a no-grade coverless, selling for $78,000 in 2022. Then, of course, we just had one in April, the big 3.0, that sold for $600,000. We all thought at that point that sale was really, really low, and it just goes to show you, buying affordable copies on really rare stuff, especially superhero stuff like Batman, Superman, they go for a bigger amount because you have a wider pool to draw from. Now, $300,000 is an insane amount of money compared to the almost $1 million that Action one nearly or didn't nearly sell for, right? So it just goes to show you market-wise what people are willing to spend money on. Someone would rather pay $300,000 for a 0.5 Tech 27 with the wrong cover than $1 million for a complete Blue Label Action Comics #1. Either way, kudos to the buyer. I would have paid this for this book just to own it. So let's stick with Batman. Here we have a copy of Batman #1 in a CGC 1.5, one of the many Batman ones that have come up for sale over the past 3 months via Heritage, via Comic Link, via all the other auction houses. Quite a few of them have come to market over the past few months, and it doesn't really help when that happens because all it does is drive down the price for these books. The one thing I'll say about this book, there is some spine wear, but it still presents really, really nice. The yellows are really yellow, which is really important in my opinion when buying a Batman #1. You guys know, of course, this is the first appearance of the Joker and the Cat, who later goes on to become Catwoman. This one sold for $108,000, which includes that 20% buyer's premium. With that said, guys, I think this is a pretty good sale for this book. You can see the blue arrow I have included here. That means the book is going sideways, pretty steady right now. Considering what it's been going on with all the books, all the Batman ones coming to market, this to me was a pretty strong sale. Now you're going to see a 2.0 sold back in January of this year for $102,000. So yes, we have a pretty good sales price considering January, a slightly higher grade went for $100,000. Then we had a 2.0 from the Promise collection back in 2021. For $240,000. Again, the height of the comic boom, this is a Promise collection book, so I do think this book would command a little bit of a premium. Then, of course, we have the 1.8 from September of 2023, which sold for $138,000. That book I still see for sale all the time on Instagram, so someone is definitely trying to unload that book right now, and they're not getting what they paid for it. Then, of course, we have this book, the 1.5 that just sold. GPR Rated has this book recorded as of me pulling the data, $108,000. So again, sideways for me, a 1.5, definitely higher than it was back in January of this year. So to me, I take that as a positive for this book. So let's shift our focus back to Superman, okay? So we have another Superman 1 that showed up on Heritage for sale. And just like the Batman 1 we talked about previously, there have been a bunch of Superman 1s that have really come to market over the past couple of months. And I think it just drives down the prices for this book. Now, well, notwithstanding, this is a CGC 1.0. You can see the damage to the front cover of this book. The yellows are not as bright, they're not as beautiful as some of the other Superman ones that we have seen sold. So that may have affected the price, right? This one actually ended up selling for $84,000 with that buyer's premium already included in that amount. Now, the one thing I said is I was watching this book and it was sitting at like $36,000 for quite a while. I was hoping that there was a chance this book was going to settle on $60,000. And at that point, I thought it would have been a steal. With that said, this book is Blue Label. It is complete. There are some things that are reattached with tape, but it's all there. No issues with that book. But I wanted to show you some of the other copies that sold not only this year, but years past recently in a 1.0 and even a 0.5. So we're going to start in 2022. The average for this book on one sale was a whopping $141,450. That is quite the drop. But keep in mind, that copy may have presented beautifully, okay? In 2023, the average for this book, again, on one sale, $101,111. Again, keep in mind, presentation matters, but it's still a big drop off. The 12-month rolling average, again, on one sale, 90,000 bucks. So if I'm going to list this book and I own this book and I see a drop from 141 to 101, now down to 90, why are we listing this thing, right? Unless you paid literally nothing for it and you're making money regardless, or you really needed the money, I would not have listed this book for sale with anyone, let alone Heritage. Let's also take a look at a few incomplete books. Check out a sale that occurred in April of this year, guys. An incomplete 1.0 sold for $138,000. That is an impressive sale considering this book is incomplete. I'm assuming it was missing the back cover. Again, you could find out through GPA what that book was and what it was missing. Regardless, presentation matters, even in Golden Age, especially big Golden Age books. People don't want to spend money if a book looks like shit. Just saying it how it is. I also want to take a look at a 0.5 incomplete back cover missing from August of this year, which sold for $84,370. So check that last sale, which was only a couple of months ago, to this one that just occurred. Someone paid the exact same amount for a 0.5 incomplete with the missing back cover, as opposed to a book that is complete where the presentation is not as good. Now we're getting to the book which I was most eager to see what it was going to sell for, and that's because I own a copy of this book. It is Detective Comics number 31. Probably the most beautiful cover that has ever been done in all of comics. That is my opinion. Regardless, with this one offered up in a CGC 4.0 blue label, no restoration whatsoever. Now, to remind you guys, I own a CBCS 5.0 with moderate restoration. So usually, not all the time, usually books around the same grade that is blue label and restored, the restored usually sells for about half of the value of that blue label. That's not always the case, but a lot of the times it is. With that said, this book went for an insane amount of money, $174,000 with that buyer's premium, which is absolutely shattering record. So we're going to start off looking at a 6.0 Universal Blue Label that sold in March of 2017 for just almost the same amount, $175,000. So again, 6.0 compared to a 4.0 now, getting that same dollar amount. We had a Universal 5.5, the Davis Crippen copy, selling back in 2009, so a really long time ago, $26,290. That is crazy. Universal 5.0 sold in June of this year, $174,340. So again, a 4.0 selling for that exact same amount. With a 4.5 back in December of 2016 for $96,000. Then of course this sale, the 4.0 selling for $174,000. This book is on the rise. I am shocked. I was blown away about how much this book went for. I thought it would cross maybe like 110, 120, and that was it. But with that buyer's premium blowing through that, this book is super hot right now. And I think with just around 100 copies out there on the census, if you can get one of these things, I think it's going to be a good buy. It seems this book is really in demand. The one thing I want to bring to your attention is this. If you're a buyer of a book, I don't think it matters if you're, paying a buyer's premium. It's still the cost of the book is the cost of the book. But if you're selling a book, why do you want to give up 20% of the sale? That to me is a little nuts, especially when we're talking about a high dollar book like this. So let's talk about something that really grinds my gears. It's when Heritage puts the same book in the same auction, right? We had that 0.5 Tech 27, and now we have a 5.0 restored copy of the same book in the same exact auction. To me, I think if this book was not in the auction, you could have seen that 0.5 garage sale copy go for a little bit more. Maybe some people bowed out and said, you know what, maybe I'll go for this 5.0. I don't know. Regardless, I hate when they do this because I think they're doing a detriment to the other person who has the same book in the auction. With that said, this is a restored copy. Maybe someone doesn't want to spend $300,000 on a 0.5. They want something that maybe presents a little bit nicer. They don't mind the restored. Went after this book. And it sold for a decent price, $228,000. With that buyer's premium, you can see the blue arrow going sideways. Roughly what this book is on track to sell for. So let's check out GPA. You can see back in 2008, we had an extensive restoration copy, 7.0, sell for $50,000 roughly. And then we had a moderate just this year in October, selling for an insane $336,000. So yes, I understand there's restoration levels, but if you put a 7.0 restored in 2008 and you sold it now, you made a shit ton of money. So congrats to the seller, because hopefully they paid less than that way back when. Then, of course, we had another restoration copy in another 7.0 for $384,000, so amateur restoration. Let's jump ahead and go to a 6.5 for $107,550 in November of 2014. June of 2017, a 6.5 signed by Bill Finger sold for $313,000. Does that signature really mean that much? I don't know. That's a crazy amount of money for a 6.5, only 3 years later to boot. Then, of course, we had a 6.5 trimmed, selling for $41,000 in 2008. 6.0 in 2006, selling for $61,065, and a married back cover 4.5 restored, selling for $44,500 in 2010. Who says you can't make money owning restored books? Every book I've showed you on this GPA list, they're all restored. I would say to you guys, if you're looking to buy restored Golden Age, get one with the least amount of restoration. If you're worried about money, you're worried about investment, because it does matter. Either way, $228 for a 5.0. Pretty decent sale for this book, in my opinion. So kudos to the buyer and kudos to the seller. The last book we're going to take a look at today is this Batman number 11. This is one of my favorite covers of all time, especially when we're talking Batman. You're going to know that Tech 31 is absolutely my favorite, but this one is a close second in my opinion. I've always wanted to own this book, and this one coming in at a crazy CGC 9.4, guys. The highest graded copy on the census for a Golden Age book. It's remarkable. It sold for $132,000 with that buyer's premium. To me, a monster sale on an absolutely beautiful cover book. I think Golden Age classic covers, they're really hot. You saw it with the Tech 31. We're seeing it with this book. I know it's super high grade, but if you could find some great Golden Age covers that are in really good shape, you think you might have hit the ticket. Let's check out the CGC and the GPA analysis. That 9.4 sold back in August of 2016 for only $65,725. We had a 9.0 Universal in May of 2013 for $15,380. An 8.5 sold for $26,400 in 2023. A Rockford Pedigree 8.5 for $23,900 in May of 2015. And an 8.0 just last year, June of 2023, for $33,600. Now, a couple of things are in play. Yes, this is the highest grade out there according to CGC. Did that play a factor on why this book went so high? Absolutely, right? Someone's always going to pay for a book if it's the highest graded on the census. And it being this is a Golden Age book, we may not see another higher grade out there. Unlike copper, unlike bronze, unlike Silver Age books, where things are still coming out of the woodwork, okay? But again, classic cover to boot. Another monster sale for a Batman book. So all in all, Tech 31, Batman 11, Tech 27s all sold for monster prices. How I think this all affects the market, and that's the big question, right? Batman's really hot right now. That's obvious to me. People are willing to spend more money on Batman books. That is because obviously they're worth a little bit less than the Action 1 we saw, right? The Action 1, clearly a higher market dollar-wise, and almost $1 million, and it has to go for more than that because the book didn't even sell. Superman 1, I think a couple of months ago, we had some strong sales on incomplete copies, so I'm not really sold. People are saying Superman's a dead character because I've heard people say that a lot recently. It's really not. People are paying for what they're seeing. They're gladly able to pay higher prices for a book that presents a lot better. So again, I'm sad to see the Action 1 didn't sell. I would have loved a monster sale on that book. But again, when we're talking about that type of money, those type of people are not investing in comics right now. That's the big thing I'm taking away from this auction. For the people that have that $250,000, $300,000 to throw around in comics, they're doing so, right? They're putting their money to the highest grades on the census, to some awesome keys, some really hard to find books, some great Batman books to me. So it makes me happy being a Tech 31 owner, a Batman 1 owner, stuff like that, because I'm happy to see these books finally getting their due. What does it do for the market going forward? I kind of think it's just more of the same. Too many of these books are coming to market, in my opinion, right now. I'm hoping the next signature auction, we're not having more of these come out, because I don't want more poor sales to hit the market, because all it does is bring the price of everything down. So to each his own. If you're in the market for some of these books, you're happy to see some of these sales. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.